is that, number one, we see that they will kill a lot of things, even cancer cells. Do you realize that you have, or we have, within our bodies already an ability to take out cancer cells? And I will tell you that you've all already done it. These natural killer cells have already done that. They've taken out cancer cells. And we know that, because of psychoneurobiology, this study, that they are more sluggish when we're sad. But not only are they more sluggish when we're sad, but when we're laughing, they increase in number. They increase in number. Now, I say that every time I give one of these talks, but let me say this as well. I am not in any way saying that if you have cancer, or you are diagnosed with cancer, or if you know someone that has cancer, all you need to do is go down to Redbox, get a couple of comedies, and some popcorn, and everything's going to be okay. I'm not saying that at all. If you end up with cancer, then you need to do what your doctor has asked you to do. I'm also not saying, so understand this, I'm also not saying in any way, shape, or form that if you end up with cancer, or someone that you know ends up with cancer, it means you're disobedient to God. Or God's punishing you because you didn't have forgiveness in your life, or something like that. Let me give you another way to think about this again, right? Trying to see things from God's perspective. Maybe He allowed cancer into your life because, number one, He knew you could handle it, right? Because God's not going to give us anything that we can't handle. And He knew that in order to make you into the person He needs you to be, so that you can help other people, you had to go through that. Seeing things once again as God sees them. So if I never went through the pain, and it was very painful. I can tell you many a story, which I went through a lot of pain that I would never want to go through again, nor would I want to wish on anybody else. But if I had not gone through that pain that I went through with my wife and the kids, and how all that stuff went down for months, I would not be here doing what I'm doing, and being able to help so many people in this city, and hopefully other places as we progress through. So I would say that about cancer as well, is that if you end up with cancer, or if someone you know has cancer, I would just say just trust God in that, because He's got a plan. He's got a plan. But one thing we do know is that within that cancer, and as you're dealing with that, laughing helps to increase those cells, and it can aid in that person getting better. We know that if someone is cancerous and they're sad, they're in the dumps, and they're just upset because I have cancer and you just don't know how I'm doing, they go. I love the movie, if I can reference the movie, if you've seen Patch Adams. Patch Adams is a great movie about a doctor who really came up through the 70s. This was the first physician to really take this humor thing and use it. And there's a scene in that movie where he's in school. He's still in school, medical school, and he's gotten on this floor where these kids are, and all these kids have cancer. They have bald heads and the whole deal, and he makes them laugh. He puts his feet in bedpans, and he takes a pole and he puts between them and starts riding like a horse. And he's got this big nose on, and the kids are just cracking up and they're laughing. And you see a nurse come in, and she just shoos him out of the way, because this is a hospital. We don't do that here, right? It has that kind of an attitude. It's back in the 70s. But now, if you go to Children's Mercy, there's pet therapy, there's games in every room, there's clown therapy, there's this, that, and the other, because we realize that if these kids are happy and they smile, then it helps physically with the cells in their body, the natural killer cells, and their ability to do the job. I tell you what, if I have something broken in my house, then I'm going to consult the manual, because the person that made it, or someone that made it, maybe wrote that manual, and I'm thinking they probably know pretty well how that thing works. So I'm going to consult that. God made us, and He gave us a manual, and that's our Bible. Yeah. And it says in there that all these things I'm talking about having to do with this immune system and bone marrow, it says a way in which we can keep that going. And a lot of that has to do with obedience in God and trusting in His Word and doing the things that He asks us to do. So I would consult that manual, that once again we, in the medical field are just now catching up to. So we see that natural killer cells are more sluggish when we're sad. They increase in number with laughter. IgA, letter D. IgA. I can't help, and I say this a lot as well, I can't help but whenever I see the initials IgA, I think of a drugstore. And if I was to say this to my kids, they would have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about. But I can say that here, and everybody can be with me. But IgA stands for immunoglobulin A. I'll write it down. IgA stands for immunoglobulin A. There are several different immunoglobulins in our bodies, and this is a type of antibody. IgA, IgD, IgE, IgG, IgM, there's a lot of them. But I want to talk about IgA specifically. For one reason, one that we know is that IgA increases with laughter. But let me tell you what IgA does. I am very much into trying to keep things as simple as I possibly can. I do that in class too. I remember going through school and hearing teachers give really, really technical definitions for stuff. And there's something that we teach in my school that's called, I teach a little bit of X-ray as well. So there's something that we teach in school that's called the inverse square law. Listen to this definition. This is inverse square law. Inverse square law is defined as the intensity of the X-ray beam is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. What? And I see those definitions, and I tell my students all the time that when I get ready to talk about something, I feel like Charlie Brown's teacher. You ever seen that? Womp, 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 womp. That's what I just said. That's what I just said. Womp, womp, womp. And so I try to make things as simple as I can. Let me give you a simple definition of IgA. And it's not going to make sense at first, but I'm going to make it make sense. This is what IgA does. IgA plugs the holes. And I could be real technical. But this is simple, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. IgA plugs the holes. I tell you, when I think about things and when I teach, I think in pictures. I've been like that for a long time, and so I'm able to give my students these little pictures and stories, and it helps them to understand these things. Let me give you the picture I get in my head when I think about IgA. I see two people in a boat. They're in the middle of a lake. They're fishing. They've got a bucket right in the back of the boat because they're fixing to catch some fish, and so the bucket's there. And they're fishing, and they notice all of a sudden that the boat is beginning to sink. And they look and they see there's some holes in the boat, and so they grab the bucket. Somebody grabs the bucket, and they're doing the best they can to get that water out of the boat. But it's not happening. It's not going anywhere because as they're getting the water out, it's continuing to fill up because there's holes in the boat. Maybe if someone would plug those holes, then they can get the water out and they can stay afloat. IgA plugs the holes. Let me tell you how this works. So you've been sick before, and you go to lay down in bed. This is the worst. You're trying to go to sleep, and then there's nothing you can focus on but being sick. And so you have one nostril that's plugged, right? And the other one's fine. And then you got ears doing the same thing, and then it switches. So and that one's okay. It's frustrating, and you don't know what to do when you try to take this drug and that drug and that. Well, the reason why that happens is because you've got this virus that's in you, and the body's trying to fight it. If the body just left everything open, then the viruses that are out here would come in while your body's trying to fight what's already in there, and you take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, and you don't get well because you just stay the same, because everything stays open. IgA says, let's shut this down. Let's plug this up so I can fight what's inside and get it under control. Once your immune system has gotten it under control, then, okay, let's open this back up again because I've got it handled now. That's what IgA does. It plugs the holes. Now, one of the things we know, because of psychoneuroimmunology, is that IgA increases with laughter. With laughter. So, once again, you're sad, you're bitter, you're unforgiving. You don't know what she did to me, right? You don't know what he did.